Okay, I'm not gonna say how crazy it makes me. Let's see if I can get the intro to come through without getting frozen out first. Okay, so this is lovely Jade Rehder's intro. Jade Rehder is a multidimensional coach, empath mentor, and retreat leader connecting attendees to their magic and expanded consciousness. She is so grateful to have chosen the path of aloha as a high initiate priestess of La'au and you can correct me on that pronunciation later. The ancient Hawaiian path of living in harmony. I want to know what it means to be a high priestess in this context. She is honored to assist those who are ready to transcend limitations of childhood wounds, empath struggles, and the anxiety complexes that prevent them from living their true expression. So welcome aboard, Jade Rehder. You're here, we're here. Thank you for bearing with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And you did say La'au Kahea correctly. That's why I wrote it that way. I wrote it because in parentheses is actually how you spell it. And you said, what's a high priestess? Well, the Hawaiians don't call it that. It's just when I really looked at it, I went, what would we call it in the regular world? What would people really notice if they were living from this place? And it's really the walk of the priest or priestess, right? That walk of transcendence in every moment of every day, as much as is humanly possible, while honoring the human.
Wow, that's deep. Some deep shizzle. That's good. So there's so much we want to talk to you about, and I'm just going to keep going and ask my guides if they would just, hang on to the I don't know if that's a thing that they can do, but ask them to hold on to the Wi-Fi connection for us so I don't have to be all floppy on this call. But in our little pre-talk that we had yesterday, me and Linda had one that we put on our Facebook group. Oh, that reminds me, there's some stuff I want to remind everybody before we go deeper in, is that Jade has a Facebook group. We have a Facebook group. It's all in the description below. We always invite people to like, share, subscribe, and to hit the notification bell, because that's how you know when things come up and things come through. We do events every now and again that just pop up. So having the notification bell is great. And also we have something called Coffee, or I want to call it Ko-Fi. It's Ko-Fi, and it's a way to support us. If you like our shows, you can just buy us a coffee and tip us that way. And that's a really great way to support the show. And then also, Miss Jade, we have a question from one of our members, and I'm just going to start with that question so that way I don't forget it. And it's kind of a wide question, but it's in terms of like you can go anywhere with it really, but I want to put that in there first so we can really honor that member who showed up. And this is Abel, I believe it's Abel Gonzalez, and he asks, what exactly is meant by self, considering there's more to our being than just our everyday mundane self? So I guess, how would you define self? That's a big question.
It's a gigantic question. And I actually saw it yesterday. So that allowed me a little bit of time to resonate with it. Immediately, where I went is that it's possible for us to be experiencing ourselves in multiplicity or multidimensionalness. Yet we are, when we go to our most original, we have either an eternal original self, a prime creator self, whatever you call that. And at this point in my own journey, I see the rest of them as copies, playing out their roles in evolution. So I worked for decades on connecting to high self and that being, or higher, taking the hierarchy out of it and comparison, going to high self. And I want to thank my friend Joanne Pullis for pointing out, if we take the ER off of things, all of a sudden we're not comparing. They just are. So the high self is one of the, in fact, I even learned in Ascension training, it was a drop down, right? And we play with these drop downs on our way through. So what Abel's asking about is, we've got our human self. Is that what we call self? One aspect, right? So my favorite way of looking at it is like a diamond, like a brilliant cut diamond. And there's 53 facets, I believe, on a brilliant cut diamond. And one is on the top, right? And it's the bigger one that's shining. Yet all of that is you, that inclusiveness of you. So at this point in my personal evolution of awareness, I asked to be in communion and communication with my eternal self, the self that always is and is everywhere. So hopefully that answers that in some way, but I would agree we have multiplicity of selves.
And
Thank you.
I just want to let everyone know that I am watching the chat on YouTube because you are so good at answering questions on the fly that I thought I would go ahead and have that open for people if they want to ask questions. So if you're watching on YouTube, put the question in and I'll try my best to pop it in for Jade.
That sounds like
Thank
fun.
you. That's excellent.
So starting out, I really want to honor and thank you for joining us, Jade, because my gosh, I talk a lot about 3D and 5D and what that means, and I'm still figuring that out for myself. But if there's a person walking around that I know that embodies incorporating that into your life and every day, it's you. And if there's someone that, you know, I sit there and think it's easy to give advice when you haven't walked through the flames, and you literally have. And so with everything that's going on, I really felt it was important for you to share your message and share your experiences over the past several months, and however long you want to go back for, to help people on their journeys.
Well, and the walk through the flames has looked multiple ways in this lifetime for me. I had an ending of a forever marriage. I had a marriage that was never forever. And then my second marriage was a forever marriage. So there was one walk through the flame. And that one was super stretching because it contracted me so much that after I figured out what I was creating, I was in a super stretch moment, or years. Actually, it was years. This walk through the flames, which was literally my home burning down. And that was after I had been prompted by my intuition and my high self and beyond to get up 12 hours before the fire started, to be popped out of bed after being asleep for 30 minutes. And I felt the energy of fire. And I heard in my head, fire. I've been clairaudient since I was a child. I was 33 before I understood that everyone else didn't have a full on team of voices in their head guiding them. I thought everyone had a they. And that's what I called them. They said, you know, so they, my team of me, said, get up and go look. So I get up, I walk outside, and I literally look the direction where the fire was 12 hours later. And I can smell fire. I live in a contained valley, the Rogue Valley in Southern Oregon. And we smell fire a lot because the wind blows fire smell into our valley. And it's a small little cauldron and it swirls around. And I literally look where the fire starts 12 hours later and there's no fire. I'm like looking for the red ball. I'm like looking for the red ball in the sky, like coming over a hill. I spent 20 years in Colorado too, and I know what it looks like when fire is coming over a hill. And nothing. And I hear from my guidance, or my inner guides, right? Prepare. My answer is I will after my appointment at 1 tomorrow. So I'll be preparing at 3. I get up the next day, have a conversation, get ready and go off for tea with a shaman friend. And I'm drinking Shakti chai at a tea room in Ashland, Oregon, when my phone, which has the hearing impaired on, so it flashes. So if it's on stun, it flashes. It flashed. I looked at it. It was my mom. I sent, can't talk right now. She called again. I picked up the phone. She said, there's a fire in this part of Ashland. I'm like, we have fires all the time. We were in a wind event and we knew this consciously. We were down firefighters because of how many firefighters we had. But the real message was I didn't listen. And at this point, I'm not even beating myself up. As you can hear, I don't have any charge around missing my own cue. And, you know, because I could have gotten out my paintings. I have 11 Catherine Skaggs paintings. I had a huge crystal collection that I could have gotten the biggies out of, right? I could have gotten a lot of other things out of there. But when I left with my purse and my car, that's what I had. By 1 o'clock that day, I literally could see where I was up on a hill, the area where I lived, burning. And we have it on video because we had Ring cameras. Yet I went into a different place than I would have thought I would go. So I ended up staying the night at that shaman friend's house. She goes, I couldn't get around the fire. We had 3 fires burning. I couldn't go north. I couldn't go south. I couldn't go east, and I couldn't go west. I could not get around to where my parents' house was, just northwest of me, where my sweetheart, who drove out of the fire through 2 walls of flames to their house, was. And I was pretty darn calm. I've been through 2 situations where I was amazed at how calm I am. For those of you who are drama queens, I was Miss Universe of Drama Queen. Highly sensitive, highly empathic, highly porous, unaware that everything wasn't mine and it wasn't my responsibility. And so I was a rock star drama queen. So to be at neutral, or 99% neutral while this is happening, was very unusual to watch and be in communion with, be in participation with. The other time I noticed this piece was when the ballistic missile alert came on my phone when I was living on the Big Island of Hawaii. And I knew inside my heart that it was true, that Korea had sent a missile. Yet there was nothing I could do. Like when you're at that point where you truly have to, what most people will call surrender. I just call turning it over. Like I have to just turn it over and be okay with whatever is. So what else can I answer for you guys around that?
So the calmness that you felt, that serenity, that surrender, can you go a little bit deeper into that state of being that you were at that time? For people who are maybe not in that space, who are in anxiety, who are worried.
Yeah.
What was the difference? How did that shift for you?
It was around that I knew my things weren't me, that my magic and my contribution to our world is inside me. So it was a huge reminder of the outer things, right? And no matter how cool they are outside of our true beingness. These are material compositions, which are beautiful. We've manifested them. And that the worth, and this is a big piece for me, my unworthy muscle was, I came in like the Hulk of unworthiness. I was unworthy with everything. Didn't matter how much I contributed. It could have been thousands of hours, but I could have done more. And when I finally got that worthiness was an inside job, and that's a story in itself, the turning point on that. I mean, it was a lot of years of work, yet I have an awareness now if people can truly get that it's an inside job and they can have that awareness from there, they can work through that much more quickly. I never had worthiness was an inside job until like 2017. It was still outside of me. So my worth didn't come by what I owned or, you know, how many cool crystals I had, or, oh, wait, my Atlantean light table that cost as much as an IROC Z28 that I don't have anymore. There's only 8 in the world and now there's 7.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I lost a piece of consciousness technology that's pretty much irreplaceable. One of the pieces, it was the only functioning one in the world. that did this one thing with consciousness. Yet I've experienced it. I hold its resonance. And from there, I can still broadcast it. So those kind of things, being able to know that I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
Yes, this body does. Yes, this personality does. Yet the essence of me, and let's talk about soul. For me, soul is my star origin unified light. Someone was interviewing me on soul one day, and I was like, how are you going to do an interview on soul? You are a child raised Catholic that argued from the time you could speak, and you don't really agree with the construct of soul you were given. How do you do this, Jade? And I'm like, well, what is my soul? So I asked me, right? What soul? And it's star origin unified light. And I'm like, oh, okay. Eternal, right? Eternal. Even a dark star is still eternally there. So those kind of things. Let's see. In everyday speak, I knew everything would be okay. And we've all been through COVID, so nothing's the same anywho.
Right. So one of the things I hear, because I'm also auditory, clairaudient, I keep getting is it's the security, that your security is not external either. Your security is not in possessions.
No. My mother's statement since I was a child is your safety comes from between your ears, because that's the life she had to live. Her dad died when she was 10. So she had to tell herself she was safe. Yet I have seen the evolution of feeling safe in my own experience, in my own life, over the last 15, 20 years late. And I do see, Linda, it's a big thing for everyone right now, that if we can open our hearts to knowing that we truly are safe, that we navigate from more of that integrated place. So you mentioned 3D and 5D. I even stopped talking about it, Linda, because so many people were confused.
Yes.
So have you seen the work of Matthias de Stefano? Either one of you?
No.
Oh, okay. Matthias de Stefano is a young Argentinian man, late 20s right now. He has been awake his entire life. You will love him. He is on Gaia. He is on YouTube. Fridays, he does it in English.
Oh, yes, I do know who that is. He's able to just access all the realms, like reading through them, getting data, delivering it, just has it.
Well, and he's simple. I love that he's going from Espanol to English because it's so simple the way he presents it. Dimension 1, existence. Dimension 2, polarity. Dimension 3, space. Dimension 4, time. Dimension 5, integration. Dimension 6, angels and demons. Dimension 7, transcendence. Dimension 8, the Akash, the records. And Dimension 9, the creator head or the Godhead. So when he says how our universe here works, how really this video game we're all in together, how it's constructed. So it's so interesting because we talk about 3D, 3D, 3D. And people are like, well, this is 3D. This is 3D. It's solid. I'm like, well, it's space. Yep. That has, material atoms in it, right? That are physical. Yet third dimensional consciousness that we're talking about is really has a lot of victimhood in it. For me, it's ran by the theme of disappointment. And I just had to face another level of disappointment, the fire being a catalyst for me seeing this disappointment program still running in the background of my psyche. And I just found that maybe 6 weeks ago and went, Jade, you are disappointed what you had created didn't keep producing. And we're talking from from the early, like 2008, 2009, when I lost my identity because I was no longer the business owner, the wife, the mom, the big fish in a small freaking pond in my small town in north of Denver. I was no one again, right? Like, so when we lose who we think we are, we have to go deeper into who we really are. Like, who are we? And it's kind of like, what's my purpose? I remember years ago going to help one another or to contribute, right? Like, our purpose isn't a job, but we think it's a job because that's what our personality programming has told us, that our job is who we are. And I was a roofing contractor. That blew people away. It was so much fun to say. They'd say, what do you do? I go, I'm a roofer. And they'd be like, you're a roofer? I'd be like, yeah. With my pretty fingernails I had on, I go, I don't put on the roofs. That grounds me for some people in knowing that I have not walked in the clouds my whole life. I can speak both languages if I'm asked the question. Can you say that in a way that might be more accessible for someone? Or give me a metaphor, right? So the metaphor for 3D and 5D for me is that in 3D, the world happens to us. And in 5D, we are participating with the world and co-creating. So that integrated field of co-creation, knowing that we do have choice and how we show up. I mean, I just got off a call and I went to bat for eagles because someone was doing the eagle condor prophecy and I didn't let her finish. And eagle had all this stuff on it, capitalism, paid, you know what I mean? And I went, I'm going to insert in here. I want to talk about my eagle. And I was like, thank you for reminding me I don't have to come to the defense of something. Maybe I should listen to the whole prophecy. And I even have heard the prophecy, but I was in protector because I'm down here in Southern California helping my mom who doesn't feel safe after a broken leg, after a hip operation that broke her leg. And her not feeling safe has me in, massive protector of everything. So 5D to me is noticing our own behaviors and from there adjusting. It isn't about being perfect. It isn't living in nirvana for me. I still have contrast. That's what I see as 6 when Matthias talks about angels and demons. It's contrast. It isn't polarity. Polarity is like comparison, us against them, right or wrong, good or bad. And I grew up my way or the highway, right, wrong, good or bad, in a very Scandinavian Germanic culture. And not saying that every Scandinavian Germanic culture is like that. The one I chose to imprint and the way I chose to imprint it. Someone else could have been raised. My brother has a whole different look at life. We were raised in the same house. We are 19 months apart. I'm only 19 months older. It was not that different, right? We were going through almost all the same experiences, but my filters took it in different than his filters.
Well, I want to hop in because you've given us so much content. And now that my tech is like, okay, it's working again. So yeah, talk about contrast. Oh, Lord. Someone who likes to be in control and is not in control. So yeah, I feel like there's this whole revolution, internal revolution, and that is your real mission. Like, what am I here to do? Well, you're here to support, you're here to serve. And it's like, well, it's actually more specific than that. Like, that's the broad stroke, right? We're here to serve. That's the broad stroke. But how do we serve individually? And you went through so much surrender. I see it as surrender, and I see it as like, well, who are you without that? Who are you without that? Now, who are you without that? And all these layers had to crumble and crumble away as you got to the true source of who Jade Rehder is and what her mission is. And that what I get also is it's like, you can serve on your own terms. There's no, like, the people pleasing part is the old part. The people pleasing part to get it right, to get the points, to get the stars, to get the brownie, whatever that is, it's like that was the old Jade. And this new Jade that has emerged from the fire is much more crystal clear, even though there's still some stuff around you that's resolving because this is so recent and you're still getting your bearings. But who you are, like you are the crystal that lived through the fire, and there's a new resonance within you that came out of that fire. And I mean, that's what I pick up and that's what I sense with you. And when you talk about 5D, you know, I want my illusions blown about what 5D is, and I want my mind expanded. I want my understanding honed. I say that like 5D is when we're co-creating consciously, and 3D is where it shows up. And, you know, 5D, you didn't consciously co-create having a fire come through your home. Like that wasn't a conscious creation, but it was something that your soul said, okay, well, if we lose all that, who are we then? Because you could have, you know, losing this piece of spiritual technology alone, like that could have been someone else. I would have just like stabbed myself over and over until I had to like stop stabbing myself and being like, that's not going to help. That you had some moment of grace there. Anyhow,
And
what do you?
the things that I've had to work on is self-grace. And you pointed something out so beautifully. Like, how do we contribute? I've stopped serving. That for me is a Piscean overlay of servitude. I have 7 planets and asteroids in Pisces. So I used to be so really good at being a martyr, a hero, a savior, an over caregiver, and in service. Yet the way we serve, the whole for me at this point is within. You know, is really allowing ourselves to evolve ourselves. Like you're saying, with my co-creation, I create in this space and time, in the 3rd and 4th dimension of this. I am co-creating. And you know, I had to look at it. Now, mind you, almost 2,800 homes died. And if I would have still been in my meaning making program of I created everything, because I was told, take responsibility for your life. You create everything in your experience. I tried to figure out how I created the Christian Muslim wars. I tried to figure out how I created all of that. Like if I created it all, Miss Specific, I have a specific freaking filter that I have had to grab a hold of. I mean, this filter is so freaking specific that I can at times go, excuse me, Jade, but I think it can be done a different way. I mean, you look at my astrology and my numerology, some of it shows, it makes me a fabulous detective. I can find root cause like there's no tomorrow with people. I can help them find it themselves by already having it, right? I have it in consciousness. I just wait until they move themselves to finding that root cause. Yet, I found it was one of the spiritual things that kept me stuck. So that's one of my 2021 bandwagons that I'm going to be on is here are the spiritual beliefs that I embodied in this way that had me stuck. I'm not telling you that you are stuck. I'm not telling you to believe it this way. I'm just saying maybe take a look at it. Because if I was meaning making to the same point I used to meaning make, I would have created that fire. I would have burnt down 2,800 homes. I would have been in the guilt and shame complex of that lower vibrational consciousness, whatever we call that.
Yeah.
That resonance that made me responsible for all of that. And I had to work. I noticed it. I said, are you taking responsibility for all these people's health? Didn't they co-create this too?
Thank you.
My guidance team told me I lived on the Ring of Fire. Jade, you moved to the Ring of Fire. Get ready. And I'm like, is the volcano going to blow? And I wouldn't get an answer. And I can feel the land. I can feel earthquakes that I can't find online on my root center. It sounds like a balloon, someone blowing on a balloon. That's how it feels. It's a tickle. I can feel them. Yet with this fire again, I was woke up before. And so I had the pre-awareness and I was not in the fire. I was 1.5 miles south of it. So when you tell me I'm not going to be in it, I think maybe I'm in Hawaii, in Colorado, maybe I'm, in Australia, not 1.5 miles south. yet it was true, right? So this is when we start looking at our own lives. And I take responsibility that I chose to live in the Rogue Valley, right? I chose that.
Mhm.
I chose to delay taking action on what I had knowledge of. Had to come into alignment with myself with that. Those were my choices, for better or worse. It doesn't really matter. It is what is. That's one of the biggest things that I've embodied after this fire is this is what is. Now what, Jade?
Well, I think there's this huge point of like what you were saying before, and I feel like it's important to just stand on this point for a moment, where people in the New Age community they will become myopic about a certain perspective or belief system. Like, well, I'm the creator, so therefore I create war, and I like why I'm, and it's like, it's an interesting exercise. I think it's a useful exercise in terms of expanding your consciousness and looking at things from different angles. It is never for us to uh, become responsible for other people's creations, because that's like a form of ego, where it's like disguised as like, oh, I'm taking responsibility, but it's like you're not, you can't decide somebody else's home burns down unconsciously, and like you're not involved in all these lives, man, creating all these lives. Like, back up and come back into yourself. What is it that you are resonating? Your frequency is what you are creating from. Your frequency is what you're creating from. And and it makes me think, was there a part of you that asked, well, I just want to get clear. I want to remove all the obstacles. I want to remove all the distractions. Like, was there a part of you that asked that, and the universe said, done, like, like, we're going to make it happen.
Yeah, I had ordered a tent to bring the things out of my studio so I could sort through all the paper and organize my life and really reduce and simplify. That was my request. Now, I thought it was going to look like my mom helping me sort through all of my notes. Was this something that still was pertinent in our experience, or can I let that go? And go through my books. And I went from 3,000 when I left Colorado to 300 when I moved to California, and I still have probably, well, I probably have 5 now. So it is one of those things where, yes, I had made the request. I was sick and tired. I felt trapped. I'm being real with y'all. I had bought a 1968 trailer. I had my dark night of the financial soul. Codependent behavior pattern allowed me to leave someone else that I owned a business with in control of my FICO score to the tune of $460,000. So when the sheriff knocked on my door, I was really grateful that I had bought a trailer house, because I really couldn't take it, and had to go through the big B. And the big D created the big B by my behavior, my codependent behavior patterns. Their behavior was their behavior, my choice to leave my.
What are the big B and the big D? What are the big?
Bankruptcy and divorce.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm a country music, so big D, doesn't mean Dallas. What is funny?
DIVORCA became final today. Okay, go take it away. Sorry.
Well, and then my significant partner for the last 7 years, his name is Dallas. Laugh, shall we laugh? Because going through the big D and I don't mean Dallas is the other song. So, my highness, my more expandedness wanted freedom. I was trapped. We were putting all the money into remodeling this, making it nice. My sweetheart was tired of remodeling, and he had probably 3 more years between our place and his place. So what happened? They both burned down. Yeah. Oh, he lost his. Now, see, here's a bit of a polarity. I was like, okay, my stuff is gone. I go to get something or think I have something. I'm like, Jade, that's gone. I have this conversation with myself a lot. Well, that's gone. Well, that's gone. Well, that's gone. So I have a lot of that's gone. He lost a huge record collection, all of his musical sound. I mean, he's a big auditory, hundreds and hundreds of records, massive amount of speakers and sound systems. He's building himself his own sound room. I mean, these
Wow.
we're going through it differently now. We're what, 3 months in here shortly. He's seeing the freedom of not having to spend 3 years of his life force building something which would never have a tall ceiling. He and never be movable and never be, you know what I mean? Like I was looking at it going, I had myself trapped. I did. And I had to untrap myself. And it all burns down. You are untrapped.
Yeah, and it's this, God, I just feel there's so many points I want to anchor in on, and it's hard to keep track of them because they keep flying through. But one of the things is like Linda was saying in the opening, like we are going through this huge redefinition of security. We're going through this huge redefinition of what is safety, what, you know what I mean? And I'm at a personal place, like I'm a bit of an anomaly because I am not really attached to my physical things. I have moved so many times. Whenever I move to a new city, I move about 10 times within the city before I find my place. I lived there for 2 years and then I moved to, you know, it's just, so I'm not hugely attached to physical things. And if someone was like, Kat, leave everything behind and you're going to move to Australia or Canada or some other place, you know, to have a new adventure, but you have to leave your stuff, I'd be like, okay. Like it, like for me, I don't have that sort of that level of attachment, but I'm the anomaly because, you know, finally buying that house, getting the down payment on your home, having a backyard, like there's all this American idealism around what home looks like and what that means. And then there's this contrast of like, well, you're always in your home. Your home is your body. Like I'm always home no matter where I am. And my physical surroundings don't define that. And so there's this dichotomy. And I feel like this point of awakening that we are in culturally is to realize Gaia is our home. Our home is Gaia. Like, and I know that you are a big Gaia woman, you know, I know that resonates with you so deeply. And I think that this is part of what I'm getting is that this is part of your teaching is that you literally had to live through losing everything to be able to say, Gaia is my home on every single level. I trust and rely on Gaia. This is my story. This is my experience. And it puts you at the forefront of being able to teach that from an on-hand experiential place. What do you say about that?
I feel and agree with you that, you know, when we can be at home in our body, and that has been a journey in this life. In fact, I found not 4 weeks ago that I had my body and my nourishing it, whether it's exercise, nutrition, whatever, in a separate stream, hear this, from my consciousness. My consciousness, my evolution, my mind, my emotional body were in one stream of energy. My physical body and how I was dealing with it were in a totally different freaking stream.
Okay.
And I was like, how's that? I'm like, Jade, you decided to do parts. You know, I I mean, I was 10 when my body didn't work the way other people's did. So it was bad and wrong. So I kind of like, there you go, you're over there and you do your thing and I'll do my thing. And we've been called in my own experience and what I notice around me with my friends and my clients is that we're being called to put our house into the whole of what's going on. You know, we can intellectually know my body is my temple. We can have all these things at a head level. We got comprehended that. I know it in my gut. Are you living it in your heart? So this has been my big initiation, and initiations, everyone, are the beginning of taking even more from my head and my emotional body into my heart, mind, and having that be where I'm following the resonance of. I'm not following my thought resonance or my emotional resonance. They're both contributing. yet it's coming into the enteric nervous system of the heart and into that flow. And it's a completely different experience, because I like my emotions ran everything. I remember when The Secret came out and someone goes, Jade, is it a thought or a feeling first? And I said, depends upon how you're wired. And they're like, well, but blah, blah, blah says it's a thought. And I said, blah, blah, blah is it. Michael Dooley, I remember who it is right now. He's wired intellectually, and he's beautifully wired intellectually. I'm grateful for him. And I'm wired more emotionally.
Yeah.
So my emotion, I come into a room, I feel the resonance from there, a thought or memory comes up.
Yes.
I read a book, then from that intellectual information, that comprehension of those words, then an image comes, and then a feeling and thought comes. So we work both ways. Yet when we can integrate that and bring it into the heart center,
Amen.
grace, you mentioned it, that grace, like grace.
Yeah. I feel like that is the plight of the empath, like what you've just put there. And because Linda and I are both empathic as well, and I feel like this is the season of the empath, where I see talks and memes and blogs about empaths all the time. It's like people are realizing that they're empathic. They're not just oversensitive, or they're not just too much of a caretaker. It's like all those negative labels that were put on top of them. It's like, oh my God, I'm an empath. Like, this is my gift. It's a curse until you realize what it is, and then it becomes a gift. And the body, I'm somebody too who, grew up trying to disconnect from my body. Like, my body wasn't a safe place to be. If I can get, jump out of my body, that's way better. And it led to so much turmoil, right? Because no one told me how to like integrate and listen to my body. And your body is this treasure house. It's this treasure trove of information, wisdom, chemicals that are, firing through your brain, firing through all your, your endocrine system. If I said that right. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but like, all of those things that your body gives to you. And we are just taught to live in our head. And again, your value system comes from who you are and what you do, not the essence of who you are, which is an expression of the divine. I mean,
I'd like to add something to that.
Yes, please, Linda, hop in.
So in our conversations, when we're talking about 3D and 5D and this whole what we create and what we don't create, for me, my definition 5D is our divine connectedness to everything. It is our natural state. It is where we come from. It is our natural state, is our connectedness. And 3D is our separateness, is our illusion of separateness. And when I think about, and I've always had this, where the creation of what we create, we don't create alone. It's like a spider web, and pulling on one thread, we're one little connection in that spider web where all of those come through. And you tug on one and the spider web over here moves, right? So we're all in that connection together. And I know in my life, I had one of my walk through fire moments, and it was when I stepped away from technology and my high paying job, and it went down eventually in flames and had the big D and big B with all of that as well.
Yeah.
And I remember standing, I've told the story before, standing in bankruptcy court. And it was the first time I got a message that I had asked for when I started the whole thing. Like, tell me what I need to know. Tell me what I'm missing that I need to know in this process. Whatever this is, I'll trust it. And it wasn't until that moment that I got that message. And it was, Linda, when are you going to get that you're enough simply because you were born? And that, I think, comes back and is that resonance of what's happening now for a lot of people who are having to, those illusions of what our worth is being shed. And so now it is, when are we going to get that we are enough simply because we were born, and that we have the right to be enough? We have the right to celebrate who we are and show up for ourselves and for the world in a way that is true for us individually.
Yeah.
And so I just want to, I just want to bring that together and reinforce what you guys have been saying.
And to swing on that, like the whole thing of like, we are enough, and to connect it to what Jade said about being in service, it's like, I think there can be a thing of like I feel like my purpose is to be of service, but that doesn't mean self-sacrifice in a way that's detrimental to me. It means sacrificing what my ego wants. But like when I am in true service, I'm like, oh, how can I show up? And more of me shows up, and it's more energetic, and I'm more connected, and I'm more loving. And so like when I'm in true service, I'm receiving simultaneously because it's so rich and so good. So I just kind of wanted to comment on that, because I want you to talk about, Jade, your redefinition of service, because you're still in service, but how you're defining it and how it shows up is from a much more empowered place, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, and you're bringing something up, and Linda, I want to acknowledge that enough piece that you brought up. Enough and worthy are two of the main, like, I'm not a psychologist. I got no letters behind my name except for GBT, which is goddess by choice.
Love it.
Yeah, I learned that I think in 2000. We could make up our own letters. Go for it, everybody. Woo, woo! And I have multiple past life PhDs. So if you ever see me put PLPhD, that's what that means. Or alternate life PhDs, or I'm connected to my multiplicity. Yet that not enoughness. People think about not good enough, but it's really not enough. And it was one of the most magical and completely life-changing shifts I ever did with a client. One intervention. One of my biggest things is least amount of intervention for the greatest amount of shift in that person for themselves. And he shifted the root cause of not enough. And he didn't know what he did. 2 weeks later, he told me how great his business was and how great his life was, but he didn't know what he did. So he never worked with me again. But he's now a multi-million-dollar business owner in Colorado because he's enough. And that has nothing to do with me, and everything to do with him willing to shift that. But we have muscles. And Kat, you talked about one of those, the safety muscle, right? Like that safety muscle, the self-trust muscle, the inner trust muscle. Yeah, the enough muscle, the worthy muscle. And, the other biggie that I remember reading in psychology was I'm bad. And bad comes from being wrong often. So that need to be right program that most of us are busting through in the younger generation. Thank you all for having a different take on that than we did. And you brought up something, your take on service, Kat, is different than my take on service. My take on service was me to be in complete and utter servitude, and I was 100% out of the equation. The only thing that I had was what was freaking left. And by the way, there was nothing left by the time I'd get home.
Right.
And so when you put you in the equation, I said to my mom last night, I said, Mom, so what I noticed in 2020 is really, it started in 2018, but what I hear all the time is you are the first quotient in the, what is that thing called?
Continuum?
I don't want to call it a problem.
Continuum?
Equation. I'm like, I do not want to call it a problem. I'm thinking about math, right? I'm like, it's not a problem. It's an equation. But you have to put yourself as that first energy in that equation, and then everything else. And then, like Kat's saying, service becomes a way for you to bring in more of you. And you mentioned empath. Many more people are awakening to their sensory perception in their body.
Yes.
AKA being an empath. Now that can come in so many different flavors, right? Feeling the pain of others, feeling the emotion, knowing the thoughts, like I have my whole freaking life. I thought that everyone could do that, by the way, too. Isn't everyone telepathic? Don't they know don't they know the question before it's asked? It's right there. It's in the bubble. I used to be like, well, you projected it out there and I picked it up. They're like, I didn't even ask that question, Jane. And I'm like, I heard it. So we have all these different ways, but to me, it's an empowered path. We're empowered in our bodies to have those awarenesses. Now, one of the biggest questions I've had to learn to ask myself is it mine? If I'm feeling pain, if I have a thought, if it's an emotion, is this mine? Is this my sovereign self's energy? Or am I picking it up because I'm a massive collective empath? I know so is Linda, and so are you, Kat. So as collective empaths, all of this awakening that everyone's doing, which is lovely, is amplifying the field.
Mm-hmm.
And
With the field amplification, a lot of what we used to be able to do no longer works. I'll just call it what it is. It just doesn't work in the way it used to work.
yeah,
So-
and I'm seeing that. Oh,
Yeah. No, I mean, service, any word. I feel better with contribute, but you need to feel the stream of a word for you. So no word is right or wrong. It's what stream of that word, what resonance, which consciousness, which frequency, however you want to put it. What does that word do in you? And when that word does something yummy in you, use that word, right? Like I'm being called by my expanded self to do something in January around language. And I have to really be with myself in December so I don't make any of it right, wrong, good, or bad. It just is. And notice the stream that you bring with it. When you say service, Kat, I don't feel any of that crap I had with service.
Right.
I feel service.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
like
connected, and it feels it's so rich and fulfilling. What did you want to ask, Linda?
I forgot.
Okay, it'll come back. It'll come back. Yeah, and I think it is a matter of people having a permission to define their own terms. And to me, this is all about sovereignty. And we're in a time where our sovereignty is really being challenged, and we're being asked to redefine it. And I just see these themes keep coming back up of like, connect to nature, connect to your sovereignty, connect to your body, and start this. And home and security have to start with your breath. It has to start with the moment that you're in. We can no longer be passive creators and expect things to work anymore, because the system has intentionally and unintentionally been turned on its head, both for control, but also for liberation. Like both of those things happen. It's a duality. So even as control frequencies amp up, the desire to be more self-sufficient and more sovereign amps up. Like there's a shifting and a splitting that I see, at least, where people who are comfortable, who want to have things taken care of for them, who want security to be given to them, they're going to have a really hard rocket ride. And the people who are like, well, I am the rocket, I'm choosing, I'm deciding, it's challenging. I'm not saying it's easy, but there's a liberation and a rebirth in that is not afforded in, would you please take care of me? Please take my power because I don't feel like I can do it myself. Give me a system where I can be taken care of, and not doing the co-creation number.
well, it's almost like we're being squeezed if the control is getting tighter and we're aware, right? We're aware the control is getting tighter. We kind of come out the tube of toothpaste and we get that liberation and that freedom. Yet as that toothpaste, now it's our responsibility with what we do with ourselves. How are we co-creating from where we are? And it becomes a daily awareness. So there's no, you can take a day off, you can relax, you can lay under a tree. It's not like you have to do every day, yet you don't really get to, you never come back to what was. And the whole world is dealing with that because of COVID. We also did it in 2001 in a completely different way. But you guys have noticed that nothing has been the same since we went through that experience that happened on 9/11/2001. Air travel is different. Banking is different. Our freedoms are different. You know, all of those things, we have this a whole other over entity that, again, more control, right? Squeezing, squeezing, squeezing. And yeah, this new Saturn, people talk about rules and control and what we're going to go through on the solstice when that conjunct happens. Yet, what if we look at the higher version of Saturn and notice that it can be a new way of, and a different way of doing things. So instead of it being like the old system and trying to build on it, it's a whole new system, that Aquarian mind, that Aquarian view that no matter what we're looking at tells you that's where we are as a collective. We're viewing things from that higher intellect, that higher mind, that reciprocity and that ecology. Good for you, good for me, and good for the whole. That Gaia, that what we are doing matters to the body of consciousness that we're all living on. And like, this is our spaceship. I remember the first time I went, oh, Gaia is my spaceship. Whoa.
Well, I do now remember what I was going to say. And part of that is that with my clients, what I'm seeing and hearing from people all over, and I felt myself, are these waves of disorienting emotion sweeping through, or dizziness, physical embodiments of this new consciousness that people are tapping into. And as their empathic abilities start to unfold, it can be very disorienting, because we're just big antennas. That's our bodies, our big antennas. And at the same time, we're also the transmitters.
Yes.
And so as we shift in this consciousness, as we're going through this, I think we're going to have people who decide that they're shutting down because it's just too much, or they don't want to deal with it. And there is that divide, but that divide is the people embracing this and shifting and being in the now. And the words that I keep hearing are collaboration, cooperation, compassion. You know, it's like the 3 C's, right? That we are,
or expanded consciousness C's.
right.
So there are C's than we would have done before, which was capitalism, cash. You see what I'm saying?
They're shifting. The priorities are shifting, and how we maneuver in this world is absolutely shifting. And and like, it's going to be really uncomfortable for those that the possessions are it, the external is it, those things. It's going to be incredibly uncomfortable, and to be able to be in that slipstream and flow with it is what I see. And that's going to make things a lot easier for people, being able to be in the now and realize what truly is important, and what is illusion and what is reality, and what our natural state of being truly is. And that's the connection.
I love what you said, Linda. That makes so much sense. That this, as the veil's thin, there's these new and things are happening in the galaxy. There's solar weather, there's shifts going on with the sun, like everything is changing. There's this pre-birth energy coming through, manifesting in so many different ways, changes in Gaia, changes in the solar system, changes in our connection to the other side. And all of these show up as waves and frequency, and people who are empathic but have suppressed it or denied it or didn't understand it are now like, what is this that I'm experiencing? And they call it the Ascension symptoms. And I think that's kind of a quaint term. It's not really my term, but I get it, because it's like these people who are waking up, they're like, I'm so disoriented right now, but it's because of the influx of energy that's showing up in so many different ways. And we have to, like Linda said, we're an antenna. We got to clear the antenna. We have to clear it emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. There's a cleanse. And if you lean into doing a cleanse, wherever it shows up for you first, and you start doing it, then it starts to become a thing where, well, that felt good. I'll do cleanse this. Well, I'll try this now. Now I'll try this. And it doesn't have to be a radical 180 switcheroo. It can be steps and levels, but it will help you with these energies that Linda is talking about.
Linda, have you noticed that the waves of things that people haven't dealt with, the veils are falling away from those too? Like, so we talk about like in the solar flares and the cosmic rays and all these things are, well, literally sometimes it'll be like, like, okay, in my center, because I ground, yet centering is I ask to be in the center of a even cross of energy, my multiplicity and my center column both in that what's waking up, what I'm noticing is we're waking up into our multiplicity, really from empath to multidimensional being. I did it, and I didn't know that that was a thing. I didn't know that that was actually the evolution of an empath till I was one time listening to my guidance, going and looking at somebody, this woman, right? Oh, so understand that you all go from empathic to multidimensional beings. And with that, you have the access to your alternates and past, present, future lives. And wait for it, and I'm like, whoa, that's the horizontal. Like so many of us, when we talk about ascension, are awake in that center column of this, yet often we're missing, even though it's happening, our evolution of the 360 of the horizontal, because we are all of that. And that when we do the horizontal, what we run into, those things that we didn't have the bandwidth to deal with in the time. And even though we're in a spiral universe, because people are like, I dealt with that in 1972, Jade. And you dealt with it in the consciousness you were in. And if your bubble was only this big in 1972, and now your bubble's as big as the earth, all of a sudden there's more of that to really embrace, allow to set itself free. And really a unified love freedom, it isn't, we can transcend the density of the frequency into unified love. Cool. Yet often we have to go into that acceptance and allowance of, like, wow, I didn't deal with that.
Or, you dealt with it as much as you could at that time. And that was good enough. It's like I do dishes every day and there's still more dishes to do because I'm always cooking and baking and stuff. But like there's always more dishes to do and those are still my responsibility. And it's none of it's bad. And we have to stop judging our shadow. And this time of the eclipse coming up, so this time of
us, right? Like,
say it again.
Deny it.
Say it again, Jade.
It's an aspect of us.
It's an aspect of us. Thank you.
An aspect of us. And I love your metaphor. We have more dishes. We have more cupcake containers to clean out. I mean, there's more. And that was one of the biggest things. Someone goes, I cleared my anger. And I'm like, you're still human and you're still in the plane.
Right.
So clear. That's fabulous that you worked on your stored ancestral anger. Beautiful. Now, how are you doing with the stuff you've stored since then? Because it's a birthright. Emotions of all types are a birthright.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It keys into so much to what we talked about with Lois Hollis a couple shows back, and how like shame and all this other stuff is what's mutating and stifling and poisoning our authentic emotions. And we have to be able to have access to anger. We have to have, because anger and passion are together. Fear and excitement are together. Like neither one of them are bad. They're all part of this continuum. And God, there's so many things I want to talk about with you. It's like, we're
going to do another show because it's 20 minutes after the hour.
I know. Okay, so I'm going to put something out there. This will be my last little thing. I also want to give Linda a free flowing moment too. I don't want to just be the hog, even though I do. But like, I want to talk about like the astrological thing coming up in December. And I also want to talk about tapping into our alternate selves, because that's something that I started doing a few years ago. And I was like, oh, this is a part of me that's in another incarnation, on another realm, but we're connected. And like now, more recently, I'm like, oh, I can tune into them much more easily. They're part of my continuum. I call them my continuum. But there's also this thing about coming up and facing our shadow. It seems like all of the astrological stuff is another version of face your shadow. What would you like to talk about, Miss Jade, and all that? I gave you two big pots to jump into.
You sure did. I'm like, whoa. Okay. So we'll start.
Alternate selves and how we encounter them, or your choices today are alternate selves and how to encounter them, or B, astrological shifts that are coming up in December. What feels most relevant?
Well, I want to go really simple to the astrological shifts. We go through this every 20 years, everybody. Some of this astrological stuff is every 20 years. Some of it is longer than that. But a lot of this happens every 20 years. So if you think about what happened in 2000 and what happens in 2020, 2000, we had technology, but not like we do today. That was a technology. We're going through another shift. This one with that Saturn conjunct also in play is going to be more around the rules, the regs, the money, the business, that kind of thing. So if you go inside with that, what is my business? What isn't my business? Right? What rules am I following? For me, it's because I tend to go through it like most of us empaths before it actually happens on Earth. The more expanded we are, the more we go through these energies prior to it being in Earth time.
Yes.
Okay. So if I'm playing in the 9th or 18th dimension, right? Like we can, by the way, you all have access. You're experiencing these things before they happen here in the Earth dimension of space and time, which would be 3 and 4D. So you go, for me, it's authority. I'm just going to call it what it is for me. You're going to notice where you're giving away your power, where you're giving away your authority, where you're choosing to notice that you've given something your authority. It could be a person, place, a thing, an old event, right? Like I could give my authority, my shame and guilt. I came in so filled with shame and guilt that people were like, are you Catholic or Jewish? I said, Catholic in this life, Jewish in a lot of lives. Like I could do that. Yet I've looked at it and go, that's an out of alignment of Earth energy. That is a misalignment of my use of Earth. And because I'm an elemental alchemist, and it's the funnest thing in the whole world for me. Every day I play with the elements of creation in the form of fire, water, air, and ether, or whatever you want to call the fifth. So all 5 of the major elements. And you talked about excitement and anxiety, both air. How where are you keying into that stream? Anger, passion, again, fire stream, right? So it's like over caring and nurturing. They're in the same stream, but this one you're when it's dysfunctional for you. That's all it is. It isn't dysfunctional for everyone when something is dysfunctional for you. So with the alternate selves, so flipping topics fast, because that's my world. That access to the consciousness, resonance, and knowledge that you have in what we would call another space and time. The best metaphor I've ever had for this, there's a blind behind me right now. If I'm in one of these blinds, right, one of these strips, and an alternate is 5 above, I can access that alternate by just going there. And they start contributing to us without our awareness. Mm-hmm. It isn't something we cognitively think about. So I'm going to bring up I'm going to drop a bomb here. We were taught, many of us who have trained anything in hypnotherapy, neurolinguistics, most consciousness, about a conscious, unconscious, and superconscious mind. Your unconscious mind is actually the most conscious aspect of you.
It's the biggest part. Most of us is unconscious. And there's part of it.
Most of us is unconscious to our cognitive mind.
Yes.
Yet it is the most highly conscious part of us. I met Nassim Haramein. If you know who he is out there in the world, you don't know who Nassim is. Okay, conscious resonance experiment. No, Nassim has been out in the world of quantum physics for 20 years.
Oh, Nassim. Yes, yes,
No,
yes.
Nassim,
Okay,
yes. So
okay.
Nassim was in Ashland in 2017 or 18. And he said, if you guys do anything, every time you get a chance to share with people, tell them to stop calling the most conscious part of themselves unconscious, because you're creating what you're saying.
Oh,
So I call it my expanded consciousness. And I call my cognitive experience of awareness here on earth my thinking mind, right? And then as far as my expanded self, like my what we would call like higher consciousness or higher self, that I would call more of like my creation space, right? Like all that is the void of creation. Give lots of names to these things. But if we can just stop calling, and I knew when I learned it 21 years ago that unconscious was misaligned for me. I didn't know what to say. How do I say this? This is like where the awarenesses are, but I'm unaware of those awarenesses.
it's
So if we
subconscious.
an aspect of it is subconscious.
Okay.
And often that's our earth aspect, right? In the subconscious mind where we do the storage, where we put our memories, where we have those pieces. It depends upon how you personally categorize it. So
Right,
there's no right or wrong.
right.
It's just remembering that our most conscious self we are unaware of
I'm
from
getting,
a cognitive point of view.
okay,
In
fantastic.
that conscious, in that expanded self, that is where all our alternate information is.
So
All
you,
those alternate awarenesses for me.
yeah, and so we can call that your expanded consciousness. Even if you're not consciously aware of it, you're still your expanded consciousness.
Yeah, even
Um,
if it isn't comprehensible, if you aren't aware of it. Yeah, if it's beyond your awareness. So I try to go for beyond my awareness is the vast majority of my awareness. Like we're knowers. All three of us right here are great claircognizance, right?
okay.
Clairsentience. We're clairaudient. We are also clairvoyant. Aren't we a good time? You know, some of us are, you know, we have all these different clairs running and they're open for us because we've been engaging with them. They're available to everybody. They truly are. They're available to all. Yet we have been building the muscles,
Yes.
building muscles. And some of them were like I was an open channel from the time I was born. Wasn't aware that it wasn't with everyone else in that way, that they didn't have that spigot turned on that way. And it was loud. I mean, the first time anyone did an aura picture of me, it was white light coming in like this. And I said, what does that mean? And she goes, whoa, what's it like to be you? And I go, I don't know how to be anybody else.
Right.
Like 1997. So we all don't know how to be anybody but ourselves. And that's the most important message we can have is you be you.
Yeah.
And I had promised everybody that you would do a clear, which we obviously are not going to have the time to do. And I apologize to everyone because this has been so great. But I'm guessing, Jade, you will have a clear coming up that they can maybe participate in, or do we just have you back on to do that?
I could come back on and do that. They could join me in Uplift Humanity on Tuesday nights. There's a clear that happens then. On my website is a clear for stored anxiety, which is one of the free resources.
And clear spelled?
KLEAR.
We'll put that in the description.
So yeah, I mean, there'll be opportunities. I'd love to come back on and we could co-create beforehand what we felt would really help. I'm feeling a clear maybe happening on Monday. I'm feeling that I'm being called to show up and do that.
Well, you have a Facebook group, and so people can join your Facebook group. It is in the comments below the description. So if they join your Facebook group, they're going to find out about when you're doing a clear next, right?
Sure, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Solved.
And I'm going to put in our Facebook group.
It's there, sis. I did it all last night. Woo, look at me.
Yay, but I'm going to put something else in there that Jade taught me some very amazing meditations, and I have pictures of my aura, a before and after doing that meditation and bringing it into alignment.
Oh yeah, put that in our group for people.
And so I'm
That's
going to put those
awesome.
pictures in there just to see the power, because I'm one of those that I like evidential based things.
Evidence is a nice word for that. I really appreciate that word, Linda, because it's not proof, it's evidence.
It's evidence.
And that the self-sourcing is free in my resources and empath relief. So under my free resources, it's right there. We can put that link in so that they can listen and notice what you did, because her aura beforehand, it changed size and color. It was
size and color. And one of the things I was really doing, which it's kind of funny, this is what I picked today, was creating a crown, creating that crown connection. And I went from, kind of scattered and all over the place with my aura out here to this column of a different color with a crown on top of my head of white light.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Absolutely amazing. And it was in the middle of, I decided I was going to test this because I tend to feel, I know a lot of empaths will understand this. When I have tried to go to psychic fairs, I always feel like I've been slimed. It's like this, ugh. And so I had that feeling and I just wanted to bolt. And instead I went in a corner and I did this meditation. And I had previously taken my aura picture because I was just curious. And I thought, I'm going to come back and do it again now that I've done this and see what the difference is. And so we're going to put those pictures in because that shows what a shift it can make. And I do love the word evidential.
Yes, it's so beautiful. And it's experience. Evidence comes from our own experience. And I remember I came to Boulder and I was speaking before a bunch of people at Boulder Law, bunch of high intellects, and they're like, what are you? I go, I'm an experiencist.
Love it. Love it.
All I can do is share from my experience. I'm no expert. I'm no scientist. I'm no medical anything. I'm an experiencist. And yeah, that is the most fun. And I so appreciate you two doing this. I want to tell the audience about 5 minutes before I got on with them, my third eye started going, whoop, 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 whoop. I'm like, oh, Third Eye Salon, we're here. Woo!
That's
awesome.
Great.
Well, I also want to bring one last thing on my part, and that is that, Kat, you mentioned doing the dishes. I want everyone to also concentrate on the beautiful meals that you had when you made those dishes, those dirty dishes in our lives. And also, sometimes we burn meals. Sometimes it's a disaster. It's all learning. So you do the dishes and you try again.
So be grateful no matter what you're clearing. You can be grateful in your clearing.
Absolutely.
All right, Miss Linda.
Noah, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have been here to play.
Thank you, Jade. I appreciate
thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who showed up. And I always appreciate your vulnerability, Jade, and your humor and your sass and your energy. So thank you for playing with us. It's awesome.
Mahalo.
All right.